I just really want you guys to appreciate the whole of what's happening with my outfit here. I've got my skirt and then these socks because I think it's gold. I read a lot of popular BookTok books this year, and here are the ones that I think are actually worth your time. Another, whether it's recommendations from friends or seeing it on Instagram or whatever it is, I feel like this year has just been a year of reading a lot of popular books. So I just wanted to go through all of them, tell you my thoughts, and then tell you if I think you would like it based on the type of reader that you are. So we're gonna go through them all. Just bear with me, this might be a little bit longer, but there are a couple controversial ones, so I want to explain my thoughts on that and let you know if I think that you're going to enjoy these. We're going to start off strong with Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This book was a 3 out of 5 stars for me, and I'll tell you why. I know it was a fan favorite this year, everyone was talking about it, but I personally felt like I connected with a lot of the characters, but the storyline was so frustrating. There was a lot that I wanted to see and a lot of really good potential, but in the end, it just didn't do it for me the way I hoped it would, especially the ending. I just felt like it was such a letdown, so that's my personal opinion. But if you are a reader who enjoys character development and storylines that span a broad length of time, I think you will enjoy this book. It is very poetic and it had a lot of really special moments in it, but just me personally, it wasn't one of my favorites. The next book on my list, I don't actually have a physical copy. I read so many books on my Kindle, guys. It's not even funny. I think ever since I got that, it's just been my holy grail, and it's so much cheaper. I'm not even kidding. If you are thinking about getting a Kindle, you should do it, but I'll put a picture up. The next book that I read was The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. This was one of those reads where I knew it was gonna be fun, I knew it was gonna be easy, and I was leading a group of middle school girls at the time and they were all talking about the show, so I thought, well, I should probably check this out. So I watched the show, I read the first book. I'm gonna have to say, this was a 2 out of 5 stars for me. I just did not really connect with any of the characters. I liked the show. The show was fun and cute, and I felt like the storyline was easier to follow. For some reason, it just wasn't super fun for me. I just felt stressed out for the characters. And maybe if I was younger, and maybe if I was still in that stage of life where romance was new and everything was really exciting, maybe I would like it more, but also I feel like I've read books that are for a younger demographic and I've really enjoyed them because I cared about the plot, I cared about the characters, but this one just didn't do it for me. However, I think if you're looking for something that is a fun, easy summer read where you can just use it as an escape, then this might be the book for you. If you feel like love triangles are something that you enjoy, then you might really enjoy this book. I just get stressed out with love triangles a little bit. Okay, next up is a book that I personally loved, and it's The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent. This was one of those books that I just wanted to try out, and I did not think I would make it through the first few chapters. It's about a girl who is basically adopted by a vampire king, and she's a human, and she's going into this Hunger Games type of competition to try and become a vampire, so whoever wins this contest gets to have whatever wish they want. It's a concept we all know and love. There's an enemies to lovers storyline, and at first it was so gruesome that I wasn't sure if I was gonna make it through, but I pushed through and I really enjoyed it. I thought the plot was super fast paced, I cared about the characters almost immediately, and the enemies to lovers element didn't feel forced. It felt really natural and I really enjoyed that. So I would give this book a 4 out of 5 stars. If you're interested in action, if you're interested in kind of a gritty romance, I think you'd really enjoy this book. And since we're talking about fantasy, we have to talk about Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This is one of those books that I was really excited to read and I was a little bit let down by, and I know you're all screaming at me through the camera and probably so mad at me for this one, but I didn't love it. And I will admit, I think that that's partially because I listened to it on audiobook and I just couldn't stand the narrator. So maybe I just need to read the physical copy, and I have the physical copy of the next book in the series, Iron Flame. So I'm excited to read this one, and maybe my opinion will change a little bit. We'll see. I'm hoping it will. I'm glad I read it. I think it was an enjoyable read. I don't know. It didn't have the special sauce of a 5-star read, if you know what I'm talking about. I think one of the biggest issues that I had with the book was the romance was so quick. I didn't feel like I had any time to get to know them as people individually. So when they became a couple, it was just like, what is happening? This is just going way too fast. But if you like action, if you like adventure, if you like dragons, then I think you'll enjoy the book. It is a very enjoyable book, and it's written really well. I just didn't love it. So maybe I'll read the physical copy of Iron Flame and I'll change my mind completely and adore this series. But that's just what I'm thinking right now. And I'm being honest with you guys. So I wasn't gonna lie for this video. When it comes to books that my friends have recommended me, this one was a 5-star read, and it's the only one left by Riley Sager. My friend Tara recommended this to me, and I hadn't really seen anything about it online until after I read the book, which is kind of funny because I read it right before the spooky season came out and everyone was reading thrillers. But this book is about a woman who is a caretaker for elderly people, and she goes to take care of this woman who was rumored to have murdered her whole family. And it's just about her unraveling this mystery, and it is so good, you guys. Riley Sager writes really twisty novels, and I am just here for it. It's so good. I will have to say the ending was slightly unbelievable, and if you've read the book, comment below because maybe we're on the same page. But I just felt like it was a little bit of a shock to the system. But if you love plot twists, if you love spooky thrillers with maybe a little bit of a paranormal element to it, I think you'll really like this book. It was a 5 out of 5 stars for me. On a completely unrelated note, one of my absolute favorite BookTok books that I've read this year was Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I adore this book. It's about a literary agent who is going on this vacation with her sister, and then while she's on this vacation, she runs into her sworn enemy in the publishing world, and it's about their story, and it's pretty good. I would give this totally a 5 stars, like maybe even a 6 stars. And it's one of those books that actually had me crying. Even though it's a romance novel, I felt like it just had such a depth of soul, and I have no words. It was beautiful. The sister relationship was everything that I wanted it to be. The romance was just perfect in every way. Maybe this is like my year of reading enemies to lovers books, and I'm okay with that. I can keep going with that theme, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it was just such a fun book, and I read it while on vacation, and it was just the perfect read for this summer. So if you like to read fun books with sweet romances that are also, you know, very witty and got a lot of banter, I would recommend this book. Okay, this next one is a little bit older, but it was one of BookTok's darling children, and that is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I read this at the very beginning of this year. It was probably like January or February. I'm gonna be honest, it took me a little bit to get into it, but then it ended up becoming one of my 5-star reads of the year. It was so good. Anything dark academia, I eat that up. I want it all. This story is about a girl who can see ghosts, and she works for secret society, but it's the secret society that watches over all the other secret societies, so it's like the RA of the secret society college, if you know what I mean. That's a horrible explanation. But basically she's working with the society to keep everyone else who has magic in check, but she can see ghosts. If you like dark and gritty novels, if you like dark academia, if you like thrillers, then I think you're gonna love this book. Just give it like 5 or 6 chapters to get into it, and then it gets better and better after that. Also, I haven't read the sequel yet, so if you spoil it, I'm not gonna do anything. I'll just be very disappointed if you spoil it, so please do not say anything in the comments. Next up is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. This is a sweet found family romance novel, but it's mostly about the fantastical life of these children who are magical but in a dangerous way. So they're sent to live on an island by themselves, and this caseworker who's kind of like a real world foster caseworker, but he goes out to see these children and make sure they're being taken care of. And it's just a really sweet story about found family. This was a 3 out of 5 stars for me. I didn't love it as much as I loved some of the other books that I read this year, but I did really enjoy it. So if you like found family, if you care more about characters than plot, then I think you'll really enjoy it. It's really well written, and it's just a fun book. Okay, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the Caraval series by Stephanie Garber. This was one of my favorite series that I've read. It's about 2 sisters, Donatella and Scarlett, who have been dreaming of attending the magical game Caraval, which is put on by this mysterious man named Legend. And then one year, Scarlett actually gets an invitation to go and participate in the games. And it's just their whole adventures throughout these magical quests, and I just loved it so much. The magical elements were so much fun, and I loved reading about the relationship between the sisters and their romances that were happening throughout the books. If you like books with puzzles and magic and a quest that the main character has to go on, I think you're gonna love this series. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, just the whole thing. The last book was a little iffy for me, but as a whole, loved it. 5 stars. Another book that was really big on a lot of people's lists this year was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, and for good reason. This book is totally worth your time. I know I was seeing it everywhere, so I decided to read it and I loved it. It's about 2 journalists and their experiences as this oncoming war between the gods is happening and their romance as it grows, and it is just so sweet. I felt like the magical elements weren't too overwhelming. It felt more like magical realism, even though I know there was a very specific piece that was about these gods and how they interact with the world. And I think in the sequel there's probably going to be a little bit more of that supernatural element to it, but in the first book it was just such a sweet romance and such an easy read. I immediately felt sucked into the story and I really cared about them. I don't think I've cared about a fictional couple more than I cared about this one this year. It was just so good and so sweet. Honestly, I think if you enjoy historical fiction and enjoy slow burn romances, this is gonna be a book for you. Another really fun romance that I read this year, I guess it was the year for romances, was What Happens After Midnight by K.L. Walter. I also read The Summer of Broken Rules by her this year, and it is just so fun. This one is about a couple seniors and their senior prank that they're playing on the school, and it's kind of a second chance romance. And The Summer of Broken Rules is about this girl grieving the loss of her sister and her family as they return for a wedding to Martha's Vineyard and seeing all her family again, and it's just a really sweet romance. And the vibes of The Summer of Broken Rules, amazing. I wanted to be at that location the entire time I was reading. I just really felt sucked in. So if you're looking for a good book to get ahead for your summer reading, I would recommend that. But both of these books are just perfect for really easy, sweet beach reads. One of the books I wasn't sure I was gonna like this year was The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Haro. What I mean by that is when I first started it, I felt like it was getting off to a really slow start. This book is magical realism, and it's about this girl who finds a door to another world when she's young, and then she spends the rest of her life searching for these doors. There was a moment when reading this book where I wondered if there was ever going to be any magic in it again, because I just felt like we were going along and nothing was really happening. But the language of it, Alex E. Haro is such a good author and so good with words. I felt like that was just pulling me along in the story, and it was just so beautiful to read her descriptions of the world that January lived in and everything happening around her. So It was totally worth the read, but I will say it gets off to a slow start. If you like stories of perseverance, building up characters more so than the plot, then I think you'll really like this book. It was a really beautiful book and really beautifully written. It is just slower paced. Okay, that is all the books that BookTok made me read this year. I hope that you found a couple that you want to try, and if you do, let me know in the comments below, or if you've read one of these, please let me know as well so we can talk about it. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you next time.